There are certain games in the SNES library that I can't help but have a soft spot for, and Skyblazer is absolutely one of those games. No, it's not in any way related to Soul Blazer, it is in fact a fun original title that came out of nowhere, entertained the few people that played it, and then vanished into obscurity. You know, the kind of title that would be long forgotten if it weren't for obsessive nerds making YouTube videos about it. This action platformer was developed by Ukiyo-Tei, published by Sony ImageSoft, and released in 1994. And if it looks a little familiar, it's because it was done by the same team that did the 1992 Hook game for the Super Nintendo. Well, this time they wanted to do an original property, and it's kind of interesting what they came up with. Looking at the surface, this is just the age-old story of a princess named Ariana getting kidnapped by a big ugly demon named Ashura, but an astute player will notice that a lot of the characters, environments, and even music have a distinct Indian/Middle Eastern flavor. The main character you play as is called Sky, but in the Japanese version he's known as Garuda, which a quick Wikipedia will tell you is an actual Hindu deity. Moreover, Ariana the princess is known as Vishnu in the Japanese version, which is a pretty on-the-nose name, even if the Hindu Vishnu is actually male. But whatever. Ashura is based on Asura, a class of demigods straight from the Hindu texts, and the big bad guy pulling the strings in the background is known as Raglan, aka Ravana, aka the main villain in the ancient Hindu epic Ramayana. Whew! But you're not going to find any story in any ancient religious text that resembles this one, because rather than a cohesive and faithful adaptation, this is more like if they took a bunch of elements from the texts and shot them out of a cannon and onto a ROM cartridge. Shit, even this old guy here that guides you through your quest is known as Brahma in the Japanese version, and you don't need to be an expert on Eastern religions to know that Brahma is kind of a bigger deal than this. Add to that the fact that Nintendo of America generally stripped all religious subtext from their games, meaning the North American release of Skyblazer is a much more secularized version of an already garbled hodgepodge of Eastern religious iconography. Shit, on the box they gave the main character sunglasses, so he looks like Johnny Cage Hercules attacking... what are these things? Robo-sheiks? What the hell is going on with this game? Thankfully, enough of the exotic Eastern flavor is creeped through in the graphics and music, which I'll talk about later, but all you need to know is that as far as the story is concerned, girl kidnapped, go rescue. Now, I'm going to give my first praise to the design of this game, specifically the clean, simple, and straightforward way you progress through it. You're given a Joe and Max style overworld map to navigate, and you use it to select the different levels that you must complete in order to move forward. While mostly linear, there are optional side paths you can take to earn additional skills. Each level you play is mostly of the side-scrolling kind, but there's plenty of variety featured, so it never gets boring or tedious. Like, it's not just a here's a fire level and here's an ice level type dealie. There are towers that need to be climbed, forest mazes that need to be navigated, and even flying stages that resemble shoot-'em-up games. Come to think of it, why does he have wings in some levels but not others? They would have really come in handy during this friggin' tower, that's for sure. Whatever. Here's a stage where you skip across rolling logs, trying not to fall in the water. And kudos for each level being the perfect length. While you may have levels like this water temple that will make you want to pull your hair out, it doesn't outstay its welcome, and you will get through it without too much slogging. Jeez, why is it always the water temples? I also want to shout out this neat level that has you tiptoeing across air currents, and this secret one that has literal waves of enemies washing onto a boat. And I'll be remiss not to mention these Mode 7 stages where you mostly just collect jewels to gain extra lives. Oh, and if you love bosses, don't worry, this game has you covered. A healthy dose of bosses and shockingly no palette swaps, although there is the typical boss gauntlet at the very end before your showdown with Ashura, but don't worry, look how much goddamn health and power-ups they give you in between fights. Take note, Mega Man. Sky has a pretty limited moveset that's offset by a ton of magical abilities that are gained as the game progresses. On his own, he can just punch and kick, as well as jump and climb walls, and use this one magic attack that shoots a beam, even though he can shoot beams in the flying stage without using the magic, but whatever. Once the magic starts rolling in, you get the ability to dash attack, heal, shoot in multiple directions at once, stop time, pull lightning from the sky, temporarily power up, and eventually turn into a phoenix and fly. Yeah, lots of magic. Almost too much magic, really. I'll be damned if I remember to use the stop time spell during the moments when it really would have helped. You can get by without most of it, is what I'm trying to say. You have a health bar which can be raised, and a magic bar which can't. And the game is generous at starting you with the screen you left off at when you die. Even game overs just bring you to the start of the level, and if that isn't nice enough, there's a password system in case you didn't feel like beating this whole game in one sitting, which, come to think of it, is entirely possible. Yeah, it's a short one, with about an hour and a half of playtime, a bit more if you suck, but don't worry, you will be adequately challenged. Okay, let's do gameplay. They mapped the buttons perfectly in Skyblazer, with jump and attack being the classic B and Y respectively. The X button uses magic, while the L and R buttons cycle through the spells. You don't need to do anything specific to stick to walls, you just do so automatically, which is both a boon and a bane. It's great to never miss a clutch grab, but in tight spaces like this where you gotta perform quick, trying to get your guy to where he needs to be can kind of feel like trying to put a cat in a bathtub. You just keep sticking to the wall, and we can't be dicking around here, dude. Damn it. The side-scrolling flying levels have a pretty interesting way of handling the flying. Rather than just going up with the D-pad, your character is always falling, and you have to press jump to gain altitude. This is actually fine when you get used to it, but it's jarring and weird at first. It's almost like a third tier of challenge on top of the shooting and navigating that needs to be accounted for at all times, lest you slip up and plummet into the pit. And the Phoenix spell controls this way as well. And I didn't know, so my first time unveiling the mighty Phoenix was super pathetic. And there I go. I also want to call out the Mode 7 flying stages for being a little too meh. First of all, they kind of feel like the video game equivalent of those cash tornado booths, and I wouldn't mind that if your guy can control a bit better. Any direction you push sends you full tilt in that direction, with stopping or slowing down not being an option. And he moves way too fast to accurately track the jewel patterns, and it's hard to know at what stage of the jewel's depth you can collect it. You always kind of feel like you're doing a terrible job here, even though it's easy to rack up tons of extra lives. I feel like with the bosses of the game, there's a lot of knowing the trick that comes into play if you want to beat them. The final boss in particular is 100% impossible unless you know the trick, after which it's just a matter of execution. I don't particularly dislike this kind of design, but I prefer it when you could still beat a boss with pure skill, even without knowing the trick. With this guy, if you didn't know that you could tuck yourself in the corner here, you'd be screwed. And knowing you can tuck yourself in the corner makes it a cakewalk. Some tricks border on exploits, however, like with this dragon. I immediately was able to figure out this stun lock here and completely neuter him. And last gripe, I promise. Would it have killed them to extend the attack distance just a little bit? These shallow, wimpy hits feel severely handicapped when you're used to games like ActRaiser or Hagane. I know there's an argument to be made that it's part of the difficulty balance, but it's also profoundly unsatisfying to have moments like this. But, don't let old curmudgeonly Motron dissuade you. Overall, this game plays decently, and you will have less awkward and frustrating moments as you adapt to the peculiarities of the controls. My second playthrough looked miles better than my first, and yours will too. Now, time to be a shallow bitch and critique how this game looks, and what do you know? I actually have very few negative things to say about it. It's a very nice looking game, actually. Sky here looks great and animates great, even going the extra mile with his death animation. I don't like how he jumps crotch first into things, which appears to be a holdover from Hook, but it doesn't affect anything. The enemies are all super weird, which, come to think of it, is preferred. I'm glad they didn't just hit us with the typical bat, goblin, bee nonsense that every other game gives us. Here we have Eyeball Mound, Chariot Archer, Bubble Water Dragon, Metal Balls with Teeth, and this guy. I love this guy.
I love you too.
The bosses are all big and weird and cool as well. Here's a turtle that spits apples at you, and the apples all have little angry faces, which is great. Probably the coolest looking boss is this spinning wall that tries to smush you with each spin. Not a particularly challenging boss, and kind of a gross one. Look at what you do to its face. Grizzly! Here's the genie, which should come as no surprise in this game. When you fight Raglan at the end, he is the big monstrous spectacle that he needs to be, with his towering height, big punchy arm, and melting face. Ew! Great enemies all around, and you know what? Great levels too! Right from the beginning, you're storming the temple in a downpour with awesome parallax clouds in the background and sick little embellishments like the lightning strikes striking the braziers along the way. Tower of the Terralisk does that super ghouls and ghosts rotating graphical trick, albeit somewhat better. The Falls of Torment look absolutely amazing, and it doesn't even bother me that they cheekily reused all the assets by changing everything yellow for the Sand Rivers of Shirol. Still completely different levels though. And no doubt you will be seeing Indian and Middle Eastern folklore and religious iconography on display. We all know what Ganesh looks like thanks to The Simpsons, and that right there is Ganesh on the temple walls. If I had to pick on something, it would be the map, which is a little ugly, especially the water. Otherwise, super cool graphics in Skyblazer. And the audio is no slouch either. Right from the hop, they made the Eastern theme obvious with the title screen music, which is a really bold choice. Have a listen. Damn. How is this game more Aladdin than Aladdin? I want to highlight two of my favorite tracks though, the first being the Temple Infernus with its drifting notes and distinctly Eastern modality. The second is the Falls of Torment, which just sound epic. Man, those are some tubular bells. It's great. They oopsied a little bit by including the James Bond melody in not one, but two different songs in this game, which is weird. You wouldn't expect to hear GoldenEye music when you're playing as a flying deity. Yeah, that's just odd. At worst, you may have a few unmemorable tracks, but the soundtrack is solid. A few tracks repeat for different levels, but I don't think anything repeats more than once. For sound effects, they did a good job. I would say it's hard to screw up sound effects, but you'd be surprised how a single annoying sound repeated ad nauseum in a game can really fuck things up. Thankfully, there's none of that here. Your guy grunts and heaves just fine with every jump and attack. Enemies don't make sounds aside from the bosses who make this hilarious howl. So maybe if I wanted to pick on something, it would be the opportunity for more enemy characterization through sound effects. Never underestimate a good goblin cackle. Now, I'm gonna have to break your heart a little bit, and yes, you probably saw this one coming. Obscure game that didn't sell well and is quite good. That can only mean one thing, and that's a hefty price tag. While yes, the price of this guy has been waxing and waning quite a bit lately, it generally sits at around $100 USD. Damn it! And it doesn't get any better if you want to pick up the Japanese or PAL versions. Those also go for a pretty penny. Damn it! And yeah, I don't know who owns the rights to this game today, but they sure aren't doing anything with it, meaning it's seen absolutely nothing resembling a port or re-release since 1994. The SNES is your only outlet, so either you fork over the cash or find other means of playing it. Damn it! And it's short! If you want to do some game value math, 100 minutes to complete at $100, that's $1 a minute, putting the cost on par with an airport massage chair. Damn it! It was going so well for you, Skyblazer. But don't worry, after we shake off all the dead leaves, you still emerge with a respectable 7 out of 10. A well-designed game that looks great, sounds great, but is over in the blink of an eye. Have fun.
आसमां में उड़ता नाम है उसका स्काई ओए पेड़ों की चोटियों पर दौड़े तात में हाय जंगल के दैत्य हराए दीवारों पर चढ़े होए आग के मंदिर बर्फ में भी लड़े स्काई ब्लेजर तूफानों का सवार स्काई ब्लेजर रत्नों का यार राजकुमारी आरियाना को बचाए आज रात गाए सब मिलके उसकी बात अशुरा कई बाहों वाला डर का जाल है मोती चुराता करता रानी का ख्याल पानी में तेरे जादू से लड़े ओए घूमती दीवारें मीनारों में चढ़े स्काई ब्लेजर हिम्मत की निशानी राजकुमारी आरियाना को लाए घर वापस ढोल बजे संग सबके साथ बूढ़ा बाबा दिखाए बाबा जी जादुई हथियार दे दे सा